Hello and good afternoon. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, and this is the breaking news show from Honolulu, Hawaii. With me, as always, is Dr. Peter Tarlow from College Station, Texas. And I will ask him about the weather in College Station a little bit later. But we have a fascinating discussion today I'm passionate about. So I'm really happy to welcome Marcos McCabe, I believe. He's joining us from London, and Peter Klayman. He's joining us from Colorado. And they're both, I think, experts when it comes to technical solutions for loyalty programs and airline platforms, and also experts in loyalty programs. And before we started this discussion here today, I explained to them that I'm on the top tier of many of the loyalty programs, what includes on the hotel part, Hyatt, Marriott, and Hilton, and on the airline part, specifically American Airlines and United. I'm both on the very top tier with the 1K at United as a 3 million mile lifer, and I'm with American Airlines. I'm a 1 million mile lifer, and I'm on the top, what's this, executive platinum status, and the same with Marriott. And over the years, of course, you learn a lot about the weaknesses and the strength of these systems. And I think we hope we can discuss a little bit with. All right, so let's welcome Peter, our guest today. He's joining us from Texas, no, from Colorado. I'm sorry, he said he's originally from Texas. And Peter, tell us what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. I'm Peter Klayman. I'm the VP of Business Strategy at Bottle Rocket. Bottle Rocket is an experience consultancy, a part of Ogilvy. So we help our customers build front-end technical solutions and middleware layers and help navigate technical architectures. We have longtime clients who are in the travel and entertainment space. And one of the most common threads we see across travel, entertainment, dining, and many different pillars these days is how integrated loyalty is driving consumer behavioral shifts. So hoping to talk more about that today and how we're seeing across many of these pillars, loyalty being the thread, but also seeing more and more restrictions for how loyalty can and can't be earned during the course of your travel, stay, purchase, and what that looks like, and what are some of the technical and business reasons behind that.
No, and that's a fascinating subject for myself. And you mentioned Southwest Airlines, and I was always intrigued by Southwest Airlines. Not that I know a lot about the airlines. I've only flown them a few times. I mean, even though they now go to Honolulu, I don't fly that much into Ireland, and I take United going to the mainland. So I'm not an expert, but I know that Southwest Airlines, when you go to Expedia or when you walk into a travel agency, probably the last airline you would be offered is Southwest Airlines, because they're not part of the GDS systems. These are the systems travel agencies and tour operators use to make bookings on any airline. And so they 100% rely on the loyalty program and on technical solutions so people can book them. And that's interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, they call themselves the most loved airline. There's a reason behind that. They're passionate and always kind of providing that higher level customer experience and using that as a differentiator. And so that's what they have been doing. And they've made some deliberate choices to leave that off the platform and stay kind of as their own originating solution. However, what that does mean is that they need to make higher incremental investments across a variety of their platforms in order to keep people coming back time and time again and booking, rather than utilizing some of these ancillary sales channels that many people have become familiar with. It's a differentiated solution, which doesn't mean a good thing or a bad thing, right? It just means a different strategy they've chosen to take in the market. And as a result of that, they also likely have higher rates of the e-commerce side, application utilization, and other aspects. Now, of course, some of this data is really hard to get to, but that was the choice that they made when starting off and coming into the system. And it's a choice that's kept people self-originating a lot of their travel, both for organic and for business.
Yeah, and when you look at Southwest Airlines, I couldn't avoid referring to their latest struggles they had with massive flight cancellations. How did the system hold? How did the system help the consumer? So if I was a consumer and I made a reservation on Southwest Airlines and my flight is canceled, what would happen? What would you see on your app? Or do you still need this human touch? You know, still need to be on hold at a call center for a few hours before you can get a solution?
I think you're asking me the hard questions today, right? And some of these questions I should answer, and some of these questions I should answer. But what I will say is, across all airlines, not just Southwest, you see a tremendous amount of technical debt. You see old systems, old code bases, code languages that are only used and maintained in this industry. So yes, one of the most recent large-scale system-wide failures has been Southwest Airlines, but that's not unique to Southwest Airlines, right? We could trade that crown for many of the other airlines, or the FAA for that matter, right? And we've seen a lot of ground stops in the last year as a result of some of the technology that we have deployed that in turn cause some of these problems. So I think what you're really pointing the finger at is you're trying to take a front-end solution that's really fancy, really nice, beautiful consumer to engage with, whether that's a booking site, Expedia.com, or many others. And you're trying to pass all of that data into a system that might have been built in the 1980s or 1990s. And you're trying to convert these two data feeds. Most of the time goes off without a hitch, right? But every once in a while, you do have these system-wide interruptions. This could be a result of infrastructure failure, code failure, many different failure points along that. This is a big, hairy, thorny problem to fix, right? And this is something that all airlines are having to overcome. It's just been a very public situation for Southwest recently.
And of course, that would keep guys like you busy fixing it, because it needs to be fixed. And it's not only Southwest Airlines. I know when it happened to me many times when there is a cancellation or a delay on United Airlines and you're trying to change planes in Chicago or Denver or Houston or Washington, their gateways, or Guam, even worse. What are you going to do? I have to say, in United, I'm very pleased with the app, because before you even get off your seat, when you land, you already know, okay, there's a problem. And then you look at the app, it gives you an alert. And when you go to this alert, it's giving you alternatives. And so you can book on the next flight, or you can wait 2 days, and all of a sudden all the rules you had before no longer apply because they give you alternatives. So you don't have to get into this long line. What I really enjoy, and it's really the app is helping. And that's the same with delayed baggage. And I don't know, I'm assuming Southwest and everyone else has the same thing, you know, the situation with delayed baggage in Europe, especially through Lufthansa, what is an alliance partner. And then we get into another issue because alliance partners are sometimes code shares. And where would you find information on them? In the case of United, when my bag didn't arrive last year in Croatia, in Zagreb, I didn't get into this long line. It probably would have taken 2 hours. I went to my United Airlines app, even though I didn't fly United Airlines, and I was informed the whole step where my bag is. They immediately located it. It was in Frankfurt. They told me what flight they're going to put it on. And it was wonderful because you didn't need to really talk to anyone. You see everything on the app in black and white. And that's probably what you're referring to in updating these apps so they become more and more consumer friendly, so we don't need all these people behind it.
So yes, and you are talking quite a bit about the magic, right? And what I mean by that is an infrastructure investment that you're talking about, not an application investment. So assume that the app, the website, are the channel that let you interact with the passenger. To enable that data flow, how does United pass you all that baggage information? Well, every ingress and egress point at any airport where bags are coming in or out have scanners on it that are passing information that have been originated with your bag tag all the way back up to a server that has relatively real-time updates that create a record of where that bag is that you can then build workflows off of to inform consumers about. But not every airline chooses to invest in that level of enterprise infrastructure for a variety of reasons. Maybe those gates that they've leased are not permanent leases, they're temporary leases. So they might not comply with having the scanners at those locations. Or maybe it's a newer leg or route that they've just opened up, right? Where they're not as familiar, you don't fly as frequently, it's more seasonal. All of those can be reasons for why that system could degrade or not work. or never be installed in the first place. So this is the trade-off here, right? We want to keep costs low, but you're talking about billions of dollars of infrastructure investment to enable that bag scanning. Now, as a consumer and passenger, it's really hard to perceive that level of depth and difficulty. Why can't you just tell me where my bag is? It seems so obvious. But then when you take it 2 or 3 steps downward, you realize there's these system-wide, infrastructure-wide limitations to enable that seamless experience. And this is a competitive factor. It might be that in the long run, you're more likely to fly United because you have confidence in where your bags are going to end up versus another airline. And that's the trade-off, right? We're thinking about investments. We're thinking about investments in fleet. We're thinking about investments in infrastructure. We're thinking about investments in consumer-facing technology. What mixture of all of those, plus investments in the loyalty program, because there are costs associated with that, what mixture of all of those makes the most sense to create a compelling package for your average consumer?
Yeah, and it's all investment, and these are really investments airlines have to make because we have a labor shortage, so there are not enough agents working for the airlines. I myself talked to agents in I did a story on Lufthansa where they're literally aggressive and don't want to help. And they said, we don't help you because you fly on United Airlines. Even though they're part of an alliance, you can never talk to a human being who has the authority to do something, or they cannot do it because of technical limitations. I have a recent example. Again, I'm talking always about myself, but that's how you learn. I had a ticket, what was a business class ticket on Qatar Airways, what involved an independent reservation on American Airlines, what is an alliance member for Qatar Airways. And when I tried to, the American Airlines flight was from Los Angeles to Honolulu, even though it was issued for an unrestricted first class ticket, what you should be able to change, was a very expensive ticket. I couldn't do that because these tickets were merged or married in the technical system. I was able to find my flight both on Qatar Airways and I found them on American Airlines. So there's no way of splitting this record. So in essence, even though it's an independent, unrestricted ticket, in my case, from Los Angeles to Honolulu, what is not married to the case on Qatar Airways to Riyadh, I was unable to do this change. And then when you talk to the American Airlines customer service, even the so-called platinum people, they said, no, we cannot do that. You have to fly on this flight. So the technical, I think, development of all these systems to talk to each other is so important. Why would an airline not want to invest it? They don't necessarily, an airline doesn't want to have clients that are upset or go someplace else because an airline is restricted to do certain things, right?
I would make the alternative argument that how frequent is a customer flying on the global alliance to fundamentally change their travel behavior as a result of a lack of integration? I think the reasoning for why you haven't seen those types of investments, which are big, long-term, hairy, difficult to implement, technical lifts, because think about where all that data lives. How do you ensure that that data stays accurate? There's compliance related issues. There's different governance bodies, right, across those various geographies that dictate different requirements. The risk might not be worth the reward for those airlines. Now, for you as an individual consumer, it's an infuriating and maddening experience. And you are a unique consumer to that very nature, right? In that you fly so frequently, you travel so frequently, you're so aware. They likely have not seen penetration of enough customers experiencing this type of problem to prioritize it high enough versus something that might be more suited to a domestic market or common legs on a flight where they control both endpoints versus this alliance travel, which more than anything is a way to offer more rewards flights to multiple locations and to have possibilities for asset sharing and things like this than it is necessarily a deep-seated long-term plan for integration, right? They're not making the European Union, which is ever closer union as a result of the alliance.
And the alliance is another subject what is interesting, because when you go Star Alliance competing with One World or any of the other guys, everyone is completely different in how they operate. For example, when you go to your United app and you wanted to pick a seat on a Lufthansa flight, in my case, I'm leaving tomorrow, and I'm eventually going to Mumbai on my last leg on Lufthansa, and the flight starts on United. Even though it's it's an unrestricted business class ticket, is an expensive ticket, I cannot choose my seat on Lufthansa because in the United app, Lufthansa seats don't display. And when I call Lufthansa to get my seat, they're telling me a record is booked by United. I have to call United. And when I call United, it says, oh, no, this is Lufthansa. We cannot touch it. So you see these different type of restrictions, what I think is
Definitely
business opportunities for guys like you to go to the airlines and do this. So how would an airline learn about these priorities? Because I think it's also, when I complain about it as a consumer, that only goes to the agent who's getting more and more frustrated with her or his job because she cannot help and want to help. But how does it go to the management and to the decision makers and to those that say, okay, we're going to write a check to better the system and hire Peter to do this for us? How's the process on this?
Yeah. So when you are with an agent and you are at a help desk situation, there is a form that is being completed in the background that is going into a general ticketing software. This gives you support center volumes, gives you information. You can do AI and machine learning against that set of problems that customers are facing to better understand exactly what is the nature of this ticket, or is there a couple of things that were addressed during the course of this ticket. That starts to give you generalized themes across your support desk. So a ticket might be weather delay, right? We know that it's a weather delay related call. There's a rescheduling associated with that. A ticket of this nature might be something along the lines of like poor service or safety. There's many different ways to categorize these tickets. What you start to then see in turn is trend lines across aggregate customer reactions. So in this situation, you're producing one ticket, but if enough people were producing that ticket, then you'd start to see a common reduction in quality of service or scoring as a result of this common customer record not identified in alliance partner ticket, unable to book specified seat on second leg of journey as a result of the alliance partner, something like that. And that might be boiled up to the top as something that might make sense. But I have an underlying hypothesis. It's not going to hit the top 10 anytime soon.
So the alliances are really not perfect. When you go on one airline, what's part of an alliance for another airlines, besides the lounge access, you don't really always get the benefits you expect. So where do you see the alliances go? I mean, they are competing quite well, and even airlines within the alliance are not always friends. And we've seen this within the Star Alliance with Singapore Airlines. They've always been different than anyone else. They always wanted to be, and they were better than most others. When you see the way Lufthansa is fighting with United on many issues, agents are not even on a talking level, I guess. How do you see how technical integration could maybe solve some of these communication problems between the alliance system? Or some people are talking about privacy laws. So when you provide information to an alliance partner, you may violate privacy laws in another country. Is that an issue why these apps may be not being developed the way they should have been developed?
You're asking me a lot of questions that I should always say, you should consult a lawyer who's well-versed in local privacy law to better understand. I think the easiest way to highlight it is with a metaphor, which is to say, the goal of the alliance should be to get in as easily as possible because it drives a tremendous ancillary benefit to all other alliance members by opening up new routes, period. If you start dictating that there needs to be technology integration to enter the alliance, the number of addressable members in that alliance is going to drop. Because what's the business value of driving that integration to just get those ancillary flights? And the goal here is scale. not necessarily integration. So I don't see a future in which they're ever going to dictate common technology stacks or common technology requirements, because it would alienate so many of the members of that alliance. And in that case, the relative power of one alliance over the other may shift dramatically. Star Alliance all of a sudden starts dictating that everybody needs to have the same technology stack. A lot of those airlines might attrit and go to another alliance because there's much less work to stay in that alliance, and they still get the ancillary travel benefits. So you're kind of you're playing chicken. I don't know if you're familiar with this, right? But you both are running at each other as fast as you can. That's what's going on right now. And I think the game here is to limit the number of barriers imposed, right? Not increase the number of barriers imposed. Technology integration is a huge step towards more unified operations. It's difficult for multiple business units to say technology integrated, let alone multiple entities, each of which have their own shareholders and their own strategy.
Yeah, no, and I fully understand this, but then again, at the end of the day, the consumer is talking, because the consumer makes the choice. What is the best alliance? What are the best airlines I go to? I fully also understand their carriers. They may be huge. They have the money to invest. And then there are smaller carriers. They don't have the money. If you look at Aegean from Greece, I don't think they have the same amount of money as Lufthansa would or United Airlines has to integrate it. So I think there needs to be more discussions on how can we all. I was hoping that the alliances would probably sit down and say, how can we integrate our technical part and equally share the cost of this integration, maybe depending on size of the airline, on business volume. I'm not sure.
High hopes. That's what I'll say. Sorry to rain on your parade, but I just don't see that happening. I do understand from a consumer perspective, it does affect them, right? Absolutely. And I'm not going to deny that. That being said, if you look at relative priority, do carriers see local legs as the majority competition, or do they see alliance participation? This is all comes down to how they perceive themselves in the market. They might be more worried about their key routes than they might be about that one traveler or that ancillary benefit that's delivered infrequently as a result of that alliance travel. And like I said, if you want to talk about prioritized investments, there's a lot of work to do in the enterprise first and foremost to get off of legacy tech way before you start thinking about integrated technology. There is a world in which it's possible. It's not possible. It's just not probable.
So how do you guys work, for instance, with the GDS partners? There are a few like Sabre and these guys. I would think it would make a lot of sense for an airline belonging to one alliance, for every airline in this alliance using the same GDS platform. And I don't know if this is the case or not. It's probably not. But if it was, wouldn't it make it easier for you guys also to adjust the way the apps work for individual airlines, because they're all linked through this one and the very same GDS? Do you work with the GDS systems, or you strictly work with the airlines?
This is a great question, right? And this comes down to the layers of a technology within an organization. We generally like to say there's kind of back-end technology, middleware technology, and front-end technology. Oftentimes, back-end technology or certain parts of middleware will not talk to the front-end technology partner, right? So when you're talking this platform, it's on the back end, you're talking about overall ticketing and res and other aspects of back-end technology that don't necessarily link out to the front end. They usually route to a middleware layer that will in turn parse the data and pass it to the front end. So changing an app might be as easy as designing the screen and ensuring the data feed is available, but there's going to be huge divergence in every organization's technical architecture. So even if the underlying system that unites them is the same, the way that system is utilized in each company's infrastructure will be different. So the simplicity, although it seems so simple on the surface to make a change like that, it ends up being far more complicated and very unique and personalized to each enterprise and their technology stack.
Now, when you design these systems, and many times you haven't a situation like the one I explained, maybe not every customer has, but some customers have. How can a human override the system? Because it appears to me that agents, when you talk to them and they're trying to do something for the passenger, what they logically think is the best thing to do, they cannot do it. Is there a way for reservation people or to empower people to override when the system says you cannot change it because this is not H class? Okay, so the customer is stuck because he has a T class ticket, for example. I don't know, so, or he's connecting to a code share flight and this is handled by another airline, even though it's a flight number of another airline. Are there systems in place when you design your solutions that agents can override literally anything they want if they have to?
People are dangerous. Okay. And what I will say is it's important to remember that even the agent is using a front end program.
Right.
That front end program may have more privileges and may have access to unique things that you as a consumer cannot do in the app. But that doesn't mean it has unfettered or unlimited access. And so even as an agent who may have good judgment and who may choose to make some of these changes, doesn't mean that their app that they've been given, whether that's a web portal, an actual built application, it doesn't matter, a MS-DOS terminal at the airport, it really doesn't matter. That program might not have those capabilities embedded. And this is super important to realize, right? Is that they might be just as limited and frustrated as you are. And that's why we often advocate for investing more in enterprise employee tools to give them more flexibility and freedom, because they sometimes do know, in fact, best how to treat that guest and traveler, but they might not actually have the systems required to do that. And that's a big challenge. And this is a challenge that's not just universal to airlines. This is a challenge to all customer-facing businesses who have agents involved in the mix, whether you're talking hotels or restaurants or e-commerce. There isn't necessarily always that opportunity to make some of these changes you're looking for in that moment, because the solution that is put in the employee's hands doesn't give them the ability to manipulate that source of data. In this case, making a T-class ticket and H-class ticket to change things. Not addressable.
So that's basically the machines are taking over the human thinkings. So we're that far now. It's 1984 all over again. So
I think that's a different conversation, but we'll see.
And yeah, it's a fascinating conversation if you think that humans can no longer be in charge of what they invent, because someone had, like you, invented the system, right? So I know in the old days, and I did 20 years of ticketing in my life when I started, and we still hand wrote a lot of tickets. So when the computer couldn't do it, okay, we just take a ticket out of the safe and we handwrite it. We can do anything we want on the ticket. So these days are finished, right?
Those days are finished. And the thing to remember is not one human designs these systems. These are complex, interrelated ecosystems where certain applications or certain enterprise services are very mature and others are very immature. So it isn't so simple to say, make it one way or make it this way, make it standardized, or even to understand the underlying logic at the time of creation, because a system made in 2006 was made with a whole different perception of technology possibilities from something designed today. And this is what gives such an advantage to new entrants. And you see this in many different markets. When you do get a fundamentally new entrant, they have a unique opportunity to reduce tech debt by doing things differently. Now, this doesn't happen often, but there is something to be said for starting anew with a notion of technology. But 20 years from now, we'll be looking at that entrant and saying, it's the same situation as it was with all the other carriers,
No, and I can understand this, and I think everyone should realize when you stand in front of this agent or you pick up the phone and demand to speak to a supervisor and they cannot help you, they really may very well want to help you. They just can't, because the systems designed don't allow them. So they took over ownership of what is possible and what is not possible. So don't get upset at the agent. They're trying most of the time. They're just limitation. And I think the only way out, really from a legal perspective, I don't know in other states, but here in Hawaii, we have the small claims court, and I think it's good up to $3,000. Take it to the small claims court. It's a lot cheaper for the airlines to not even look at the case and settle it. And don't worry about the H class and the Y class and the D class. And usually you can get your money back and you can get satisfaction. You don't need a lawyer for this. Just do it yourself. Is that basically, you think, a good solution for a consumer?
I'm not going to advise on the legal strategy to get dollars out of the airlines, but I will say, you'll continue to see changes in how these enterprise technology platforms operate. And individuals do need to be aware that sometimes the agent just doesn't have the power they thought they did. So I agree with that. Absolutely. And that makes it more frustrating for the individual sitting in the agent chair too.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I know it's I know we have a number of airline CEOs that are reading us, they're writing us, they many times are in countries and that are just emerging with new carriers and with thoughts about how to put an airline together. Can they talk to you, get advice, or hire you, or how do you get your clients, or you work just with certain airlines, or you have a system what is white labeled you could sell to?
We are not a white label provider. I think we have a lot to offer when it comes to enterprise technology in terms of just understanding your enterprise architecture. That's absolutely a place that we can help as you're starting to think about assembling various systems. There are definitely specialized platforms out there. You mentioned Sabre. There's many others, right, that operate in those niches. What we're best in class at and really known for in the market is being able to look at your holistic ecosystem, think about how that will be interpreted by your end customer, and think about how your agents and others will be able to use the technology to drive better outcomes holistically across the network. And you can reach out to me. I'm happy to help.
Okay, and you work on a global basis, or you work just for the United States, for airlines in the United States only?
So as it stands, the majority of our customers are in North America. We do have global delivery capabilities, and so we're happy to do that. We have delivery centers in Vietnam, India, Brazil. So we have the ability to kind of serve local markets as well as global markets.
Wonderful. Well, it was a fascinating conversation. I think we should do a few more. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it.
I sure did too. Yeah, absolutely.
And we were going to include Peter's website. So if anyone wanted to contact him or his company, you can do this. My last question, just contacting, maybe after this you can stay on for just a minute. But one of the big frustration I see also in the apps, when you wanted to contact what I always think a human being can maybe do a little bit more, it sometimes seems to be impossible. There are chat apps, and then you start chatting, and you're really chatting with a computer. You don't really chat with a live human being. And then airlines no longer really include phone numbers where you can easily reach out to someone. And there are exceptions. As a 1K for United, I always call the 1K number. And they answer right away, and I never have to be on hold for a long time. And they really, really can do a lot of things I think you cannot do directly. But is your advice for the airlines to make it as difficult as possible for consumers to talk to someone so your app is better, or should there be a balance?
Is my advice. That's a great way to word it, right? It depends what your metric is you're operating off of. If you're a low-cost carrier, you're trying to take cost out of your ecosystem, and there's a dollar amount associated with every help desk call.
Right.
And that can get very expensive. If you are seeking to provide more personalized service, you should make it easy to contact yourself, your organization, via any channel that the consumer wants. So you might want to call, but there might be the same person sitting next to you who wants to chat the whole time and never wants to call. And you need to offer the capability via the preferred channel. And that really is where the personalization comes down, right? You can take that personalization from knowing your name when you arrive at the gate, having favorite and selected seat assignments, having notions of, favorite drinks when you arrive. That level of personalization should extend to your digital ecosystem, and you should communicate via the channels that people are most familiar with. That might be email, that might be SMS, that might be WhatsApp, that might be, there's many different ways to think about that. You need to meet your customers where they're at to drive the outcomes you're looking for.
And that can be all built into these apps, right?
That
Also,
can
there
be,
could
or
be
it can be a
different-
standalone service that's very easy to get to from your website or a link out from an app. Yep.
And they could even be integrated by status. If you have a high status with an airline, you get to a different channel. If you spend a lot of money with an airline, I mean, if you don't spend that much money, who cares? You just go from contact to contact and talk to a computer. So I guess the system can do anything. It's not the system who runs the airlines, but it is in a way. And it's all about the client telling you what they want. And I guess you guys can build it, right?
We sure can build that front end technology. Absolutely.
All right, Peter, thank you so much. And aloha from Hawaii and everyone else. If you enjoyed watching this and you haven't heard the first part of this conversation, just stay tuned because we usually repeat it for at least 24 hours. But other than that, you can just go to breakingnewsshow.com or to our YouTube or Vimeo channels. You'll find links from all our websites, including eturbonews.com. So you can listen to Peter and myself again and again. And hopefully we're going to have Peter on one of our shows again. It was quite interesting. And from here, from Hawaii, and to you in Colorado, you have a great day, great night, great evening.
Awesome.
Everyone is watching us. Aloha.
Thank you.